Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgianna.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, we're going to be doing some shadow work and conscious relationship stuff leading up to our upcoming conscious relationship trainings online. And today's episode is going to be all about making ourselves palatable and needless so that people like us and what might be at the root of that. You'll be able to find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving. Then you can learn more about us and how to practice with us live or join the training at wholeheartedloving.com. And before we get started, G will lead us through a body-based self-connection practice.
Okay. So here we go. Let's find yourself on your chair or on your bed or on your couch or on the floor, right? So can you feel your connection to whatever you're on? And we're going to do a practice today that gives you an opportunity to look around your space and maybe see and notice some things that have always been there, but that you don't really quite pay attention to. So the first bit is looking for sources of light. So this could be natural light or it could be artificial light, but you're just going to find a source of light and notice it, look at it, perhaps feel what your feet are touching or some part of your body, connect with some part with your body and notice this source of light. If you want to add in a bonus, you could also see what's happening with your breath. And then you're going to turn and look around your space and look for another source of light. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to connect with that source of light. We're going to take a look at it, be aware of it, and then also bring some awareness to what's happening with your body. So this time I'm rubbing the sides of my feet are dangling against the legs of the chair. So I just feel that cold metal along the sides of my feet. And I'm looking at this light across the room. And then let's do one more, looking for a source of light. Noticing your body, perhaps checking in with your breath. And then just sitting comfortably, shake that off if you want to. We're going to head into another part of this practice, which is looking for the dark spots, the shadowy spots. So look around your room. This one is interesting because often we don't pay attention. You have to look a little harder. It's not as obvious, but see if you can find some darker spots in your space or areas where there's some shadows. And again, when you find one, take a look, connect in with your body in whatever way feels good. And then at your own pace, find the next shadow, find the next dark spot. Perhaps noticing whether there's some delight in you when you find something that you didn't really expect to find. And then look for that third one. And then coming to another reset here. And then this is the bonus round. The bonus round. And I find this is easier. I sometimes think it's easier in the summer when a lot of light comes in. But I'm noticing even as we're in fall right now that there's a lot of this around my space. So I'm curious what you're going to notice, which is look for reflections. See if you can see some reflections. So for example, I see the reflection of the window in my painting on the wall. So I'm just taking a look at that reflection and I'm feeling my elbow pressed against my leg and I'm just hanging here for a moment. And then I'm going to look around again and look for another reflection. And I see so many, it makes me like a little kid on a treasure hunt. So I'm finding the next one. And like this one, I'm noticing how it makes me feel also to look at it. And like, that wasn't really my intention going into it, but I noticed as I looked at it, I felt something. I felt like this amusement park energy.
Mm.
Because I have a ring light that it looks like a big circle and it has all these little lights in it. And when it's reflected off of my desk, it looks like one of those amusement park rides all lit up.
Nice.
And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's neat. So I'm taking a look at that and feeling my hand press into my chair. And then let's look for one more. See if you can challenge yourself to find one more reflection. And I found one in like the most, I don't know, unexpected place. Very neat. And again, take a look at that thing. This time I'm noticing my glasses, how they feel on my face. And then just come back to being in a way that feels good. And I'd love to hear what you noticed, Steph.
Well, I noticed a great many very applicable things.
Great many applicable things. I like that.
Yeah, applicable. Like, I mean, we just did some very literal shadow work of the not quite psychological variety, but it totally applies. The light was easy, right? Typical. Easy to see the light. Obvious. Many sources of light in here. The shadows were interesting to explore because, and I think this highlights what's also true for humans. Shadows over here. So, okay, first I've got multiple light sources, and so the shadows are interesting. Some of the shadows are very deep and dark and obvious, right? In direct contrast with some light. Some have multiple layers of shadow pointing in slightly different directions. Some of them are very straight and clear, and some of them have like different shapes and like with the layers I mentioned. And then one over here is not obvious at all that it actually exists. It fades so subtly that you don't actually realize that you're in shadow territory. And these are just like pretty excellent metaphors for shadow work. The reflections were also neat. I did not realize how many reflective, actually, when you suggested this, I was like, I am in a reflectionless area on purpose. And then I'm like, oh, look at them all. They're everywhere. And so one of the things I realized that I think applies, there's a reflection. I've got like a marble table back here with a glass top, and you can see the fern reflected in the glass, which is so pleasant. So from my angle, you can kind of see window and fern. And it was like, man, the reflections that are around you are so important for how they affect your environment, right? Like here, we've doubled up the plant life by having that reflected. Whereas like my phone reflection here, you just see like the base of a microphone. Not very exciting to look at, right? And that makes me think of the mirrors in our life, the people in our life who reflect things back to us and how that can enhance our physical environment in our bodies.
Yes, right. And like noticing which reflections we are open to seeing and which ones are harder to see, which ones are lift us up to see, which ones feel a little heavier to see and acknowledge. Yeah.
Did you notice anything you'd like to share?
So did I notice anything? Yes, I noticed things. I noticed, yeah, like you said, there were lots of sources of light. And what I try to do in these practices is notice which ones are already familiar to me and that I tend to easily look at or habitually see. And then I like to add in an extra challenge, which I didn't walk us through, but you could always do this. If sources of light are sort of abundant, and there's ones that you can very easily notice, like I'm sitting right in front of a huge window. So that's an easy source of light. But I might challenge myself to say, well, is there a source of light that I don't normally pay attention to that I could look for? Right. And so on my third one of the source of light, I was like, my laptop screen. That's a source of light. Never occurred to me, but it's always been here in front of me. Right. So I think that's the same with actual light parts of ourselves. There's going to be certain parts of yourself that you like to look at, you like to allow people to see that in you, you want other people to, take notice. You're proud of those parts. And what else? What else is light about you, right? That maybe you don't bring out as much as often, but it's still there, right?
Yeah.
It might actually even be that other people can see that in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that you're not used to noticing that that exists in you. Yeah.
Or we've hidden it
Or
for
we've hidden it.
reasons that made sense at one point.
Yeah. So that was what I noticed about the light. The dark, the shadow, the one that made me giggle. Oh, interesting. I notice a little bit of disappointment and
Mhm.
a little bit of acceptance. Okay. So one of the shadows that I really delighted me was I have this stuffed monkey that a friend had given to me years ago. And it's sort of laying sideways on my headboard, and its long tail was hanging down. And just the way the light was coming into the room, I guess it created a shadow, this long shadow of a tail. And
Mhm.
when I saw it initially, I was like, look at that. Interesting. But now when I look at it, because the light has changed, the shadow is a big lump on the wall. So yeah, that's interesting and surprising. So neat how it's the same shadow, same as in it's the same like light streaming in and same monkey that's creating that shadow on the wall, but how the shadow now appears is a little bit different. Which is sort of what we were talking about before we, decided to sit down and record this, is how the shadow can present itself in different ways. Right? And it's not always super obvious, or how it presented itself yesterday with that person might be
Mhm.
different than how it presents itself in a group setting, when I'm doing this activity.
Yeah.
But the root of it is similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how it'll shift as,
Mhm.
you do your inner work and your inner landscape changes and your assumptions shift.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that it can still be rooted in the same hurt and pain and protective pattern, but like the nuances might be a bit different, right? And how that
Mhm.
shadow appears for each of us. So that was
Mhm.
that. Reflections. Yeah, I told you one that made me actually feel something like happy and like giggly and delighted. Reflections is sort of a fun one for me because I think, like you, I just assume, like, well, where am I going to see a reflection? Where? And so I always have this delighted feeling when I do find one. I'm like, oh, neat. It's like a nice surprise. And that's sort of actually when I've participated in conscious relationship training, I think one thing that really helped me is to enjoy and delight in the mirrors that people are for me, instead of seeing them as horrible and scary, which my body might actually register them as initially. But I like to help support my body and remind myself that there's something being mirrored back for me here, for me to know myself better, right? For me to be able to reclaim some lost parts and to feel more fully alive and fully expressed and able to be myself. Those mirrors are very important, right? So when I see reflections, I feel happy. So one that I did not expect was I have this jar of cuticle oil on my dresser, and I had no idea that the light reflects off of it. I wouldn't
Mm.
have thought of that. It's also very small, but it's there. So there's like, and it's like people who are mirrors for you. Sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it's really big and loud, but sometimes it's like very subtle. And
Mhm.
if you're willing to look for what's there, there can be gifts in every person you come into contact with in terms of what it can help you see about yourself. And that's what this little cuticle oil jar bottle reminds me of.
Yeah.
Like some people,
Relatable.
it's glaringly obvious. You're here to show me this part of
Mhm.
myself. And others, it's like, don't really know. But if I look hard
Mhm.
enough, if I'm
Yeah.
open-hearted, open-minded, there'll be something there.
Boy, this is reminding me of an ex-boyfriend who I did the first few rounds of conscious relationship training with. And so we were starting to sort of notice our patterns, but it's subtle, as you say. Like there can be really obvious things, and then there's mostly a lot of very subtle, very hidden, sneaky things. And like one of the only times he was able to meet me with kindness when I was having a reaction, I'm going to call it, which to be clear is basically like everything we do is a reaction. So
Mm.
I was always responding to something, but he took everything personally, except for one day I fell down the stairs and I burst into tears like a 5-year-old. And he was like, because it was a 5-year-old response, he
Mm.
was able to be like, are you okay? Like, and was really quite nice about it. But man, the unconscious responses I was having just all the time that were not received so kindly were like, many.
Or many. Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly, good when and hard when we start seeing that more clearly, right? Hey, when
Hmm.
I'm with this person, they have a very hard time meeting me with compassion unless my expression of discomfort looks and sounds a certain way that they're comfortable with. And that just
Yes.
really limits us from being ourselves and from being fully expressed in the moment, right? So that's good to notice. I wrote down here as you were talking, this thing came up for me, is this can also become a learned response on your part, right? Like, so say
Mhm.
you track, my partner tends to only meet me with kindness and softness and compassion when I fall into a 5-year-old's kind of poor me response,
Mhm.
like, help me, I'm hurt,
Yeah.
right? Then it could be very clever, consciously or subconsciously,
Mhm.
to express all your upsets and disappointments that way,
Yeah.
right? And then there you go, you create a dance together.
Ish.
Right? And then he might be talking to the dudes one day and says, "Oh gosh, Steph, she has this way and she's always like bawling her eyes out on the pile on the floor like a 5-year-old, and I don't get
Right.
it." But if you zoom out and look at that dynamic, you might be able to see, oh, like, is it possible that she has learned with you to show her upset this way? Because when she shows it in these other ways,
Yeah. It
something
gets
not so
missed.
pleasant happens. You don't meet her there, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you're mean and degrading and minimizing and all the things, right? You could also notice, hey, like some people, because of their own hard experiences, respond better to if you're physically hurt versus if you're emotionally hurt, right? And again, like that can be conditioned. Like a young child, if they experience that often, they can be like, oh, I've got to show all of my pain through physical ailments. Or if I'm in physical pain, people doubt it because they don't see it. But if I show that I'm in emotional pain, that's when I get attention and my needs finally get met. Someone takes time to be with me and be curious,
Yeah.
right? So this is also how we can develop these chronic issues physically or emotionally because like
Mhm.
that was the way that we figured out this is how I have a chance, more of a chance of getting my needs met, more of
Yeah.
a chance of having connection.
Yeah. And if we untangle this also a bit, so that's the thing we've learned, right? This is how I get my needs met. And the other aspect of that is that the person who was meeting our needs is responding because of whatever their experience was in the
Yes.
past, right? They can't respond to emotional stuff for whatever reason, but they can respond to physical. And this is how we get 7 generations back and forward of healing when we start doing
Mhm.
this kind of work, right? We're
Mhm.
unwinding all of those past patterns from seven
Yeah.
generations back and laying a new foundation for the future. So and you can see like how subtle this can get, right? Our unconscious responses when we want attention or love or connection, if we've stubbed our toe, like what our very intricate response pattern is going to be. And it's going to depend on the people we're with and all of their conditioning, and then our entangled co-conditioning together that we've created in our relationship, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things, and I think this is kind of what we want to talk about over the next few episodes, is the main like themes we see come up in these trainings for human beings.
Yeah.
And it's always the same, right?
Mhm.
Groups of 20 to 50 people. I was amazed to discover this. In like the third or fourth year, I realized, oh, this group we're all the same. Like every group has the exact same components of people displaying the exact same human conditions, and we're all there to work through it together. So one of the first ones that comes up, and I think will be relatable to people, is being liked, right? Niceness, palatability, making yourself palatable in whatever way you've learned that's necessary. And often that comes with being, having no needs, being fine.
Yeah. No opinions. That was me. I mean, I learned to be palatable. And like, it's really strange when I sit and think of it because I really identify with that old self of how conditioned I was to be easygoing, to not really have outwardly a strong opinion. And I say outwardly on purpose because this is where the incongruency would come up. And I somehow knew it inside somewhere, but I didn't know how to name it and I couldn't exactly see what was happening. Because someone could also say to me at the time, like, "Oh, I always felt you were very opinionated." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I was." Like, I've always been in certain areas very, very opinionated, and
Right.
I can feel quite heated, right, about a topic. But that's not how most people would have experienced me. in my life. They would have experienced me as easygoing, palatable, quite a flexible opinion. And like to a degree, all of that is true, right? I have a softness, I have an open-mindedness, I have a curiosity that allows me to like hang in those spaces genuinely. But I also know like there were times when I would, I think, consciously and subconsciously turn that dial up even higher, depending on who I'm relating with and how much I want to be liked by them.
So I'm thinking of ways that this manifests in life, right? Like this shadowy stuff. So what you're describing is parts of you are soft and open and into whatever, easygoing. And then parts of you are very opinionated and perhaps contradictory, perhaps introducing potential for conflict. And so you've devised a system in which your brain knows with whom and in what circumstances you can express opinions, with whom you should keep them under wraps, maybe what life subject matter it's okay to express opinions about or not. So everything that's underneath the surface idea of what you're doing in those moments, everything underneath that is the shadow material that we're talking about. And this stuff, if it's there, like for the person who's just genuinely completely easygoing and doesn't, they're up for whatever, there won't be a lot to explore there. But for someone who's learned that they need to be this way in order to be liked, in order to survive, there's going to be a lot of stuff underneath the surface, and it's going to come out in ways and with people. Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, what's been interesting to me is, yes, I mean, I'm a mom with 2 kids who are very different. And I know that children are born, like there's a temperament attached to them as they emerge into the world. And then, of course, there's a conditioning in the family and the birth order and the social conditioning and the state and capacity of the parents when they're, bringing these kids up. And so it's easy to imagine, okay, one kid's more easygoing, for example, right? And I see this in like adults who I know who it's almost their badge of honor. I'm an easygoing person. And then there's going to be my badge that I wore. I'm an easygoing person, when I probably wore the badge when I probably should have tucked it in my back pocket.
Off duty.
Right, off duty, exactly. But no, I kept it on all the time with these certain groups of people, right? And I'm exploring now with people who claim to be just easygoing about everything all the time. And I truly believe they are wired more easygoing than I am in certain ways. And it's still really neat to be like, well, and what else? Like, you do have opinions and preferences. It's not that you have none, right? There are things that bother you. There are things that don't feel as good for you. And I think for someone who is generally easygoing, I think it's of so much value to get to know these little pieces that sometimes are easy to not be aware of, because you are generally sort of easygoing and happy to go along and nothing ruffles you that easily or that much. But it doesn't mean you have no preferences. It doesn't mean that there isn't a way that the people in your life could treat you or do something for you that would be extra delightful for you. And I think sometimes people who are easygoing tend to miss out on that extra bit of delight because everything's fine. And I actually remember, this is where maybe it's more my flavor of easygoingness. I remember years ago in my career, and it was more focused on school settings and children. And we were conversing as a group of educators and counselors and adults who care about kids. And the conversation was, it's easy to pay attention to the kids whose behavior is like something is on fire. They're loud, they're disruptive, if you want to call it that. They're just showing you in very outward ways that something's hard for them. Those are the kids who get the attention. They like, what's going on? What do they need? What's their home life? Can we support them? Even if people are frustrated and annoyed with that behavior, they get the attention, right? And someone had once said, who we really need to pay attention to? Because we're already good at paying attention to those ones. We need to pay attention to the kids who are just fine, because often those are kids who have just learned to be fine and be a little needless and be like, well, my pain and my struggle is not as bad as that kid's, so I might as well just sit here and I'm okay, right? And those are the ones who often don't have someone come up to them and be like, how are you really today? What's really going on with you? What would light up your day? Right? They sort of learn I'm already generally sort of easygoing, and now I can just also be extra needless because other people need more, obviously.
Very interesting adult applications of that behavior as we get older too, right? Like that's another great thing for people to look at. If you're always in a state of distress, what's underneath that? What needs are not being met? What are you trying to get? If you're needless and everything's fine all the time, what are you not owning in yourself? I like what you said. I wrote this down. I'm up for whatever. Usually that's true for me. I'm up for pretty much whatever. But what I would really love is like if you can hold that in, you get a bit more depth and those
Yes,
opportunities for magic that you described.
yes,
Yeah.
right? And expressing yourself in that way, I'm easygoing, I'm easy with whatever, and what I would love or what would feel especially nice is it also gives people an opportunity to like get to know and experience like these different dimensions of you. You have a bit more
Mm-hmm.
flavor and personality,
Totally.
than this one dimensional anything's fine,
Yeah.
right? And the anything's fine kind of friend, and this is I think just how humans are wired, often also doesn't get very much consideration,
Yeah. More attention.
right? Because everyone in the group knows that person's fine no matter what we do. They're okay. And so that might feel okay for you for a while, but maybe at some point you notice, actually, I don't love that feeling
Mm-hmm.
that no one really asks me, right? Or you might notice people stop asking me because my answer is always, anything's fine,
Everything's
right?
fine.
But yeah, if you sprinkled in occasionally, anything's fine. And what I'd really love is this,
Yeah.
or what I'm really excited for is that, or what I really don't want to do is this, right? Like most things are fine, but what I really don't want to do is this.
Yeah.
Then people are like, there is more to that person. It is
Mm-hmm.
important to check in with them. Like, how could we make this experience a little nice for them as well?
Yeah. It's so important because that fineness, that not being seen and met, has shadow material that manifests itself in some way in your life, right? So if you're constantly being not considered by, let's say, your friend group or your family, and that's
Mhm.
pretty much fine until it isn't. Some of the ways that this manifests are like reckless behavior, eating disorders, drug use, like dangerous promiscuity, speeding
Mhm.
down the highway. Like there's so many things that we do to make ourselves feel all right when we don't
Mhm.
realize that we actually have not been fine, you know?
Yes, right? Because actually, when you say we're fine until we're not, right? So I'd love for everyone who identifies with I'm pretty easygoing, right? Give yourself this exploration question. When do you notice that you're fine until you're not?
Mm-hmm.
Because that will tell you something. That will tell you, oh, maybe I thought I was fine all of this time. But if you experience I was fine until I wasn't, it means something's starting to percolate already. So
Yeah.
be
And you've
curious. Like, what is
blocked it
yeah.
out, right? Like your brain has gotten really good with blocking out all of that discomfort until it becomes so unbearable that you snap, right?
Mhm.
But yes, it was a buildup.
Yes, right? And I think the other thing is if you always live in this everything is fine energy, I mean, there's a billions of people on this planet. There must be some people who are perfectly content living in the energy of everything is fine. But I think to touch on what you're noting is sometimes we want some dopamine, we want some excitement. Right? And if you're not sourcing that anywhere else and being seen and considered in any other way in your life because you're making yourself sort of needless, then it would be interesting to notice where do you get your dopamine hits from and how much do you need? Right? And are they coming in ways that are helpful or harmful to yourself and to your relationships? I'd just be curious about that. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And which of those feel good and true, and which of them you feel like you need to hide or do secretly? Like there's an awful lot of techniques that we employ in our lives to be good, you know? Um, one of the aspects I think of this not neediness and the super niceness thing that I've noticed people really fear when they start facing what's inside of that is that the not fine thoughts, the not nice thoughts, they fear that those are their true thoughts. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
think, oh gosh, if this nice mask is what I've been wearing, the truth is what's underneath it. And what's underneath it, which by the way is a lifetime of suppressed judgments. Oh,
Mhm.
it's going to look really ugly under that mask at first. It's going to look ugly and scary, and you're going to be terrified that that's your true face, your only one true face. And it isn't, please be advised. And it makes sense that people are really freaked out that they, oh gosh, I actually now don't know myself at all. I thought I was this nice person. I thought everything was fine with me all the time. You know, I've been very uncomfortable privately, but I thought that was for unrelated reasons. And now I'm discovering that there's all this like kind of mean stuff inside me. And you're afraid
Mhm.
that you actually believe it. And
Mhm.
by the way, thoughts that you have are not necessarily your beliefs at all. And this is why it's important to explore these things, because most of what you fear is not actually what's happening. Your very clever, predictive mind has protected you in this way. And
Mhm.
if you're now going to engage in some shadow work and discovering what relationships you have with all thoughts and people and places and objects and ideas, it's helpful to know that parts of the mask are true, parts of what are underneath are true, but mostly the thoughts in your head have very little to do with you.
Mhm. And like they're fleeting and they're a thought that's giving expression to a feeling experience of the moment. Right. And what this makes me think of is actually sort of funny. You're sharing sort of things that we work on as adults and things that we get to practice a lot in something like conscious relationship training, where you get to see like what are these repressed, darker thoughts that I have sometimes that I've always been afraid to say out loud because, like, does that mean I'm not nice anymore? Or like, would it take over and I would be a horrible person? And we create a safe place to be curious about that and to feel some of that and try some of it on and see how does it feel to express in that way? How does it feel to feel that energy? And how does it feel to feel the opposite and say the opposite? And like what feels more true in the moment? And it's just this exploration. What it reminds me of is I was like, as I'm listening to stuff, I'm like, oh, I was doing CRT with my kids when they were little without knowing it. And like an example is when my older one, he must have been 3.5. Younger one's like a year and a half. I remember one day he said, I want to saw him in half. And like the part of me, the mother in me who's like, I very intentionally like wanted to create a no violence household, not in physical, not in emotional, not verbal, not nothing. We're very intentional about what we let the kids watch and what they're exposed to. And now I have a child who says he wants to saw his brother and other children in half. What the F? But luckily, I had learned enough at that point about child development and just the human experience that that's an expression of some feeling experience of the moment. And it was in the moment as a 3.5-year-old kid, the only thing he could muster up to convey that level of frustration or hurt or anger or fear or whatever. So I probably said something like, wow, you must be really mad at him right now to want to do that. Hey? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, you just sort of be with that kid and that energy, and you trust that there's a human goodness in here. This is just a human spectrum of emotion and expression. He's not actually about to, go grab the kitchen knife and saw his brother in half. He doesn't wanna do that. When I got curious a little bit more, like, are you mad at him because, I don't know, because he doesn't wanna play the way you wanna play, because he messes up your toys all the time? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Was part of you like, because I think, part of you does love him. Just right now, you really wanna saw him in half. He's like, "Yes."
That energy is so important. And I wish we could just express that more easily. There's a whole, I don't know if you've seen this meme of people who hate their jobs and their bosses signing off emails in like passive aggressive ways. And there's all this quiet quitting. There's all this built up
Okay. Yeah.
global resentment of people just not expressing themselves or being
Mhm.
friggin' passive aggressive about it. How many times in a day, and I'm thinking for people who have like regular employment, which I don't really have, and I often only have to deal with people that I kind of like. But I remember a time where I wanted to saw most people in half.
Yeah.
And the way I expressed that was something which I now find grotesque, which would have been like, no, I understand where they're coming from. They're having a hard day too. And all these things that are true.
Yeah.
But that was a passive aggressive expression of actually, I want to saw you in half right now.
Yeah.
And I find it so difficult when the actual true energy somebody has is that childlike anger of wanting to saw somebody in half, and what they present is this really carefully filtered intellectual kindness version that is energetically untrue. Like, I think that's actually dangerous. Part of my mission on earth is to stop that nonsense.
Yeah, I talked to a friend recently, and what's similar is she's talking to someone she was working with, pretty high up person. She's a pretty high up person, and by high up, I just mean however the company is structured, right? I think she said something like, I just want you to know I don't agree with your approach, right? I think there's another way, the better way to deal with the situation. But for the sake of working together and getting through this project, I'm okay doing it the way you would like. In the future, though, I'd like us to be able to sit down and talk through some different options. That just feels so much cleaner.
Yeah, true.
Right? It's truer. It's, hey, I don't agree with this approach. I think there's better ways.
Yeah. And that is like the adult truth version of the repressed I want to saw you in half, right? When we don't know how to express our anger, and when it's so big because it's got this backlog that we've never let out, we're going to saw them in half. But what's actually happening is like, I don't like this thing. Like,
yes,
either I'm on board or I'm not for whatever reason, but this doesn't feel great to me. And what I would like is XYZ.
Yes, right. And sometimes we understand that we do have to go along in that moment. Sometimes we do know I have to, and maybe even want to compromise. But it doesn't mean I have to suppress the part of me that doesn't agree or feels very frustrated about this, right? And when I think about my kid in that kind of circumstance, mainstream parenting, at least at that time, he's 15 now, definitely said, how can you let your child speak like that? Right. And like, how could you let them speak about their sibling like that? Right. But there was something in me as a mom in my gut that thought that needs to come out. Like, I don't want to shame that. I don't want him to hide that. I don't want him to sit thinking he's a horrible kid and a horrible brother because that thought crossed his mind. Because what was happening was that's the only way he knew how to express the frustration that's very human. And I just needed to trust as a mom that as you help your child feel that it's okay to be human and their brain keeps developing and they have a lot of modeling of how to share their frustration in ways that are kind and respectful and that also honor the other parts of them that care about people. He's not going to be 15 years old and 20 years old and 25 and 35 wanting to saw everybody in half, right? And actually acting on it. But that is a fear in the moment as a mother. Yeah. Of like, what have I done? Have I messed up my kid? And I'm like, oh no, I've actually created some type of safety where my kid feels it's okay to say something like that. Right. And there were different versions. So there was also, I want to throw him in the garbage can, things like that. That was a little milder. Right. There was also the physical. I remember probably like 2.5 years old, 3, being at what they call the jungle gym at the rec center. It must have been 2, like less verbal still. And like he would be playing and then just like get on his hands and knees and like sort of like just charge at kids with his head and just sort of bulldoze into them like he was some goat or ram or mountain goat or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with my kid? Like, what is happening? But, when I looked underneath the behavior and I would chat with him, like, and I was sort of watching how he's wired over the years. I'm like, are you worried that kids are going to come steal your toy or get in your space? And he's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. That's what's happening. But how you're dealing with it is I'm going to use my head and you jam my head right into you.
Yeah.
And push you out of the way. Right. And we have adult versions of doing that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily getting in on all fours and like using your head to ram other people out of your space, but you will try
doing that at CRT.
Yeah, you might. But like, like generally in everyday life, each of us has our own version of clearing out space around us because we feel a little threatened or worried.
Yeah. And I'd say that can come out in different is the word I'll choose ways. If you feel this kindness mask we're describing, this overly palatable thing, you're going to have your unique way of creating a safe space for yourself to be the real you inside of. And that's really what we want to be exploring, right? All the things that you think you need to be, that you think you are, that you think you were, that you think you must become, all of the things that you are afraid that you are or should be or are not. And then what's underneath that is the nugget that we're trying to express and help all you guys learn to express for yourselves.
It's quite it is the best, most uncomfortable, highly rewarding practice playground I've experienced.
Yeah,
I would say.
it's pretty neat. So, like, imagine, I'm going to give you a little example. You've got a collection of, like, say 50 people in a room who've all got their different conditioning. And when it's something like palatability, this really highlights like the ridiculousness of all of our patterns and all of our attempts to manipulate everyone to get connection. You've got somebody who's learned that in order to be palatable, they have to be loud and funny and on all the time. And you've got somebody else who's learned that they need to be quiet and timid and never express anything. And then you've got somebody who thinks they need to be really intellectual and they become a know-it-all.
Hello.
And then you've got somebody who thinks they need to know nothing and, just be simple and not ruffle any feathers. And all of these people come together with their learned ways of how they should be and how so everyone else should be. And like something new is going to happen.
And it's comical. It's comical when you walk into that room aware that, hey, that's what's all going to be showing up here is all of our protective patterns and all of our conditioning. And can we bring some compassion to ourselves and everybody else here, right? If I remember my first round of conscious relationship training, and like as you listed them off, when you said the loud and funny one, like though that I was like, that would be the eye roll for me. Right? I'd be like, oh God, you're one of those. Okay. Because they're taking up space and they're being silly. And those are parts that I felt I had to hide in order to be loved and have a spot in the family. Right. And then when you said that the nice one, the quiet one, I'm like, that's me. I know how to be that. And it's, and also in a way, sort of crappy, sort of good, is it had worked well for me in life so far. I had certain evidence that this does get me liked and this does get me some of the things that I want. And that's why sometimes we don't actually even realize that our conditioning is preventing us from having a more fulsome, more fulfilling, aligned, good feeling life.
Yeah.
Right. And free life. And then when you said the person who's the know-it-all, oh my gosh, if you and I would have been in the same room, like back in the day, like before we were intentionally there to look at our patterns, you would have probably been someone I was like, in my mind would just been like, shut the F up. Like when are you going to shut up? Please just shut up. I remember I have visuals of sitting in college and university theaters on lectures. I can see the guy already standing up, saying the thing. And I remember thinking like, it's just one of those people that just needs to hear themselves talk. Like, just shut up. Do you think none of us know that? Why do you feel you need to, these are my shadow thoughts, right?
Yeah, totally.
Why do you feel like you have to say that out loud? You think we don't know that stuff? We know that stuff. Just sit down and shut up. And that's because I wouldn't have ever done that. Like to be the know-it-all was mortifying. Like, I don't want to be that person and have the spotlight on me. And also, what if I'm wrong? All the things. And then what else did you say? I don't know what the damsel in distress. That one was hard for me.
Yeah.
I think that brings back memories for you of what I mean exactly, but
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
But it was so good for me to have that mirror, to have a woman show up in a group of 50 and stand across the circle. And like, I would hear the way she talked. I would hear the way she sort of like presented herself in the space. And I was like, I don't know about her, but everything in me just gets the ick when I hear her. Like, intellectually, I knew she's a nice enough person. Like, she's not a harmful person. Yeah. But the body memories that came up for me of like how icky it felt to be in the room with her or hear her talk or hear and watch other people support her or be kind to her, it just stirred up something, right? And when I got to explore that a little deeper, I realized I never let myself be that way. I never let myself not know how to handle something or be needy and need someone else to help me with something or need someone else to figure it all out for me. Like, I was conditioned to be independent and capable and competent and to always hold it together. So when you put me next to a woman who is very comfortable in protecting herself and finding her place in life through using the damsel in distress energy, like, yeah, no, that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was such a gift for me. Her presence was such a gift for me.
Yeah. All of it, such a gift. Yeah. And this is the gift we want to give to you for a small fee.
Right? Like, I remember one time with a client, we were talking in this like space of what like makes you want to roll your eyes and what mortifies you to imagine allowing yourself doing.
Oh, great.
And I'm going to use some terms here that maybe aren't politically correct, but I think they help us get the image, the archetype, right? The Barbie trophy wife, right? So can you just let yourself be like the Barbie kind of trophy wife and lounge by the pool and just drink cocktails all day long? Like just imagine yourself doing that. Just the thought, hearing that sentence made her cringe in all the possible ways. And then we started laughing. We're like, could be something there for you.
Yeah, that's where the juice is. If it makes you just want to roll your eyes and cringe, there's something there for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like, there's qualities of, like you might think I'm using Barbie or trophy wife as negative connotations, but like what I'm really trying to say is those archetypes are very good at embodying certain traits and ways of being and beliefs that it's important for all of us to have to some degree if we're going to allow ourselves to be human.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really about learning. There's nothing wrong with Barbie. There's nothing wrong with a trophy wife. There's nothing wrong if you want to be taken care of and paraded around. Like if that's something you want, own it and claim it.
Yeah.
But like if you want that and also you want to be independent, you want to have some of this other thing, own that and claim that.
Yeah. This is the thing, is that all of these ways that are possible to be, all of these stereotypes you could live your life as, they will be true for the people they're true for. The problem comes when we're trying to be something we're not because we don't know what the alternatives are, right? We've got this conditioning, we've got a set of ideas, we have a tiny wedge of awareness in a whole sea of possibility. And we just really want to wake you guys up to what's possible, what you've been living in that might not feel good and you might like to make some changes about, and how all of this is affecting your relationships and your work and your family.
Yeah, it's like actually, do you remember Mr. Potato Head?
I sure do. And his lovely wife.
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember his wife, but like it's like choosing the parts that really fit for you, right? And actually, like what I enjoyed about and what I think the magic and what's unique about conscious relationship training is that, like you said, you're going to see people or 20 to 50 people who have a smushing of all these different parts together. And you might not necessarily like the extreme that they take each part to or what they're mixed in with. But what I really loved was, like, for example, I got to see women who were very kind-hearted, but also fierce and fiery and very opinionated. I never knew those two parts could go together. I'm like, interesting. Right. So you just get to see, like, I like that person's fire. And I really love that other person's vulnerability. Like, what might it be like to embody more of that vulnerability and also a little bit more of that fire, which are both actually things that, were important for me to embody more of. So you get to sort of pick and choose from different people, like what they're showing you could be interesting to practice embodying a little bit more. What have I cut myself off from, right? In order to be palatable. For me, I wanted to be palatable and needless, because if I was good at being palatable and needless, and I'm going to say, and a good helper, then I would be liked and loved and people would keep me around.
It's so funny because I see someone being palatable and needless, and I'm like, that is not palatable, and you need some stuff that I have for you here in my toolkit. The other part I love of it is you get to see people interacting in those ways that you've decided are verboten. Like, I can't reveal this part of myself, but look at that person embodying it, and that person still seems to like them. It seems like they still have love and care in the world. Like, is that possible? And then you get to do an exercise where you're put in a position that brings these parts of you out that you've been trying to hide because you're afraid you'll be rejected. And the response from people is love and support. What? And they like you more and they feel like they know you better. And like, what? You didn't catch on fire? Amazing.
Yes. And they're more drawn to you, which some of us will outwardly know we want, and others of us want, but it terrifies us, or like some mix of the two. It's neat to feel people drawn to you when you're actually showing more of your parts, the parts that you thought you had to hide. And then for some people, feeling people drawn to you could feel scary because maybe you disappoint them. Maybe they fall off the face of the earth and they go away. But then there's things we practice to be with that fear too, right? So that you feel okay having people drawn to you, because you also feel okay if people fall off and go their own way. Like, none of it, you learn how to take none of it too personally. where it shakes you off of your core and your center of what you believe about yourself, what you believe is possible in the world and in your connections with people. And like that, I feel like is a priceless thing to get to experience, to get to grow those muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And to know that you're in a community of people, a growing community, an already large growing community of people who want to have the same kind of experiences and live in that way as well. It's really
Mm-hmm.
illuminating. Yeah.
Yes, I want to share something quickly. So these are special spaces where that's the intention to practice these things, right? And I love that I've been part of a community like this for a long time. We're like pushing towards a decade almost, right?
Mhm.
And I get invited, or I'm part of this thing. It's supper club, totally separate from conscious relationship. It's just a social thing where once a month, we gather and we choose a country and we cook food from that country. And it can turn out to be delicious and it can turn out to be stuff we're not really thrilled about, but we do that. But at our most recent supper club, we got to sharing more of who we really are behind the palatable and the nice and what everyone expects to see from each of us. And you could just feel the energy in the room. Like there's an aliveness that's really special. We're all allowed to be human here. That's very special. Like I've never heard that person express themselves in that way and sort of take off that pretty put together, part. And you do feel more connected. We the group chat was going off saying, hey, like, that was really special and beautiful. This is not just a group of people coming to cook and eat together. When we can connect in that way, it elevates everyone's experience of a night like that. And like that's what being able to show more of yourself gets to allows you to experience in your life. Right. And I think a lot of people, if you could say, hey, I want to give you an offer, that you get to have a safe place to sort of explore like what's really true for you moment to moment. And you're going to be loved and accepted and supported and given the amount of connection and space that feels just right for you while you do that. Right. And you're going to come out of that knowing yourself more, feeling sturdier in yourself, feeling freer just to be human. Are you open to that? I feel like even if it's not an outright yes, people are like, huh, really? Could that be possible for me? I'm open to entertaining the idea that could be possible.
Nice. That's a good
Because
baby step.
I think ultimately we all want that.
Yeah.
Right? Behind whatever we've convinced ourselves we want or don't want or don't need, we want a place where we can feel free to be ourselves. And for some of us, we're like, I don't even know what being myself means. What does that actually mean? Who am I? I'd like to know, but I don't even know how to go about it.
And I might be afraid to find out. And that's all okay and normal.
Yeah. So definitely, I'm glad that I got into this. I don't want to say secret club because it's not a secret club, but when you first join it, it feels a little bit like a secret club because you're like, where has this been all my life? You mean
Well, and
people do this?
everybody knows each other, right? There's levels. So as a level one, you come in and you're like, oh, all these people seem to like know each other and they're all comfortable and like, you feel like an outcast and you don't quite understand what's going on. And the more you discover and the more deeply you feel connected and the more this like is extrapolated out into your world, like everything in my life has changed. Everything in my familial and friendship relationships has changed, like clarified, become more true, There's
Mhm.
almost none of that like what was I living before? What was I doing? I was a total phony. Like, do you remember when I was younger, I developed a deafness and a headache for like multiple years from fake smiling.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
no
And like,
longer me.
this is like, what was I doing all those decades from the sweetest, most loving place?
Yeah.
Because when we say, what was I doing? We're like, I know what I was doing. I
Yeah.
was protecting myself. I was using what I had learned that would have the highest chance of giving me the love and acceptance and belonging that I knew I needed. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
was using all of those tools to
Yeah.
try to get what I needed. So that's what we were doing.
Well, and it
One of the
makes
ways you were doing that was being really phony.
totally, yeah. And I mean, if I use a less emotionally charged example, I didn't know I liked sushi till I tried it. And I didn't want to try sushi because it looked weird, but I did because my parents bribed me with money. And then it was like, oh, amazing. A whole new world has opened up. this is what that's like, right? There's all these ways that maybe you could discover that you are, and maybe you're not quite ready to look at that, but you're willing to believe that possibly there could be another way. There is. There's so many
Yeah.
other ways.
I think if there's an openness,
Yeah.
that makes all the difference. If there's a tiny bit of curiosity, if there's a willingness to allow yourself to learn to be supported while doing something uncomfortable.
I like you've got this, there are like psychological ways to get around our blocks. And one of them is, so you're not open. I mean, you're open enough to be listening to this conversation, but you don't feel open. Would you feel open to the idea that you might like to eventually be open? You know, we're chunking down.
Yes. Right. And that's why, like, I feel like that's important. It's not about forcing anyone to do something they're not open to. But also, I think sometimes we hold on too tightly to a belief we have about ourselves of I'm not open.
Yeah.
Right. Or I'm not open yet. Okay, well, and like often when we sort of play in that space, well, what are you not open to and what are you open to?
Mm.
And then all of a sudden someone discovers, oh, well, I'm open to this, but I would need it to be like that. Okay, well, we can make that happen. But
Yeah.
if you are adamant on believing you're not open and you're not open to anything, then it really doesn't give you very much opportunity to have a different experience. But if you're willing to say, hey, I'm really not open for that. And actually we come back to that episode where we talk about, and what else? What else is there? Oh, I'm sort of open to this. I'd be more open to that if XYZ. And all of a sudden you have a very different conversation. All of a sudden there's room for things to like shift and move and possibility to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, unless you're feeling super great in all of your life and relationships, there's going to be something here for you. I can't remember what the example was now, but there was a job that I learned exists. Oh, it's diving for pearls, like pearl farming. And I thought, God, if I knew as a kid that that was a job, my life might be completely different, you know? And that's true of every single thing that you don't know. If love doesn't feel complete and fulsome and pervasive and available to you, that's because you've got some limited notion of love. And there are other notions available that you can actually learn and integrate into your being and then have a different life experience. And that's kind of the point.
Yes. Choosing to put yourself in spaces where you get exposed to more of what is possible. Not because you have to take it on as true, not because you have to go pursue the thing and want it for yourself, but because it gives you a new perspective to consider. And perhaps you notice, maybe you go into a room of possibility and it makes you even more certain that you don't want that.
Great.
Even that is great. Right. Yeah. But I've talked to people who are like, it never occurred to me that intimate relationships could be that healthy, where two people are intentionally co-creating something, where two people bring in their humanness and they find ways to support each other with honesty, and they mess it up and they come back to repair and they notice the ruptures and they keep doing that, and they delight in each other and they frustrate each other and they're sticking with it and they have fun. There's a lot of people, myself included, at some point, like I think I always lucky to always believe that I felt that that was possible, but like I didn't have very many real life examples of it. But there's a gut feeling of like, this must be possible. But like to have sort of real life examples and watch how that works really helps you orient to, maybe I can have that too, because I've known since I was a kid that I wanted that, right? For other people, they're like, once upon a time I wanted that, but then I thought that's really dumb and ridiculous because I watch every other relationship crumble around me. And so then I believe that that was the only possibility, right? And then you come into a space where you see people doing relationship, whether it's friendship, work relationship, intimate relationship, teacher-student relationship, completely differently than how what you've been exposed to and what you think is possible. And you're like, what?
Okay, this reminds me, I had a temp job once and they were looking to hire a full-time person. And I thought, well, I'm a shoo-in because I've got a small superiority complex. And it was so like Excel spreadsheets, right? I was like, sure, some of whatever, like, yeah, I'm a boss at this, right? And then they were interviewing and I did the interview and I thought, I'm a shoo-in. And then I later that day walked past the interview door probably even to confirm, like, yeah, I'm a shoe-in, right? Like finger
All
guns
these
at the
other
lady.
people suck, and I'm going to be able
They
to
suck.
tell
I'm
just by
obviously
looking through
the
the
best.
door.
Yeah. And I heard them talking about Excel, the woman who was hiring and the interviewee, and they were speaking a different language. I did not know what the hell they were talking about. They knew Excel in a way that I did not understand was possible, right? And this is, so if there's some example in your life of where you know you have a great depth and breadth of knowledge and that other people don't have that, that depth and breadth will apply to so many areas of life that you don't yet have that, right? And
Mhm.
that's also what we're doing here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just a place for discovery. And it's a place, I love this term, like a practice playground,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
To
Our
just
sandbox.
try out some different ways of being. Yeah. And see that nobody dies. You might
Mm-hmm.
even have a reparative experience because what you thought would happen didn't happen. And something way better happened that you never thought was possible. Right. And,
Yeah.
yes, you can try these things out in regular life. And I think that part is important. But there's something different about coming together with people who all hold that intention
Yeah.
to practice that, coming together with people who have all been very dedicated to practicing that for years as support people. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I didn't know what I was walking into when I said yes 8 years ago or whatever. And I'm really glad I walked in. Although I
Me
was
too.
terrified every week. I was like excited and terrified
Yeah.
every single week for 12 weeks.
Yeah. Me too. I have to wrap it up because I have something, but
Okay.
we're going to talk more about this and sort of the applications, like the themes of kind of what people tend to carry,
Mhm.
and what some alternative approaches might be. So, do you have a closing practice in mind?
I think the closing is because I'm already doing it. I like to place a hand and tuck it under my shirt. You can have it over or under and just I'm placing mine on my shoulder right now. But if there's another part of your body that enjoys some touch, try that out. I would encourage you to try out on top of your shirt and under. We don't often give ourselves skin to skin contact, which we know now is so helpful for regulation and all other health benefits. So see what that might feel like if that's new for you.
Thanks, Gigi.
All
Anything
right.
else you want to say?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, then we will see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. As always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.